When you all are ready to conduct business, please let me know. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Supervisors meeting. Could you please stand if you can and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Last week we held a closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, a conference with legal counsel, existing litigation with Alan W. Claudino versus the County of Calaveras in Superior Court Case CV 35667, resulting in a 5-0 vote. The board rejected a settlement offer. We had a closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, conference with labor negotiators, SEIU, DSA, CCPSCA with the Director of Human Resources, resulting in no action taken. I'd like to move to the consent agenda. These items are routine, normally, not controversial. If any member of the board, staff, or public would like to pull an item, please let me know. Yes, Mr. Ritt. Four.
Let me just ask, is anybody from Mercer Caverns here this morning?
Okay, thank you. Any other item? Yes, Mr. Number 3. Okay, anyone else? May I have a motion on the balance, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. Ms. Newman, could you please come up?
Yes, good morning. My name is Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. Once again, I'm questioning funding in the mental health department. I am assuming this is 5150 monies, and I'm wondering if this is a duplication or in addition to an agenda item a couple of meetings ago. Although I don't remember 150,000, I think it was 157 or 143 or something. And finally, just for my benefit to remind you that I am always looking for $80,000 for my client to have treatment in the facility appropriate for his needs. That's why I'm always questioning the behavioral health monies.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Ms. Down.
Good morning. Rita Downs, Director of Behavioral Health Services. This is a contract with Crestwood Behavioral Health, which has several facilities, both nursing facilities and locked nursing facilities, as well as residential treatment facilities for persons who need further care after they've had a psychiatric hospitalization. The rate is lower than when they are in a hospital. We don't expect to spend the whole $150,000, but we have to have it there in our budget just in case we have an expense like that. Or we could have several people who need to be in the facility or their facilities at any given time. So this covers several facilities.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are there any other questions? Okay. Ms. Newman, if you have another one.
Thank you, Rita. Is this Medi-Cal money, and does it exclude traumatic brain injury?
I don't know if the facility does allow persons with traumatic brain injuries. Our mandate is to treat that. That is a diagnosis that is carved out from mental health funding. So we are not allowed to pay for services for that particular condition. But the facility may in fact accept people, I'm not sure, but not through our mental health funding. Did I answer everything?
Yes, thank you. And yes, it is Medi-Cal.
It can be Medi-Cal or not. With the locked facilities, it is not. With the IMD, Institute for Mental Disease, it is. We pay that out of realignment funding. So it is not Medi-Cal.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rita.
I'll move the item, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Item 4.
Good morning. This isn't meant to be a challenge, it's simply a question. On the items, vehicles and equipment that are going to be surplused out, would it be possible, and I don't know this, would it be possible to make those items available first to county residents, to whether you auction them or whatever, if it's legally possible to do, it might be beneficial to the people you represent? Thank you.
Ms. Boyce, do you have an answer?
No, actually, that's not possible. It is possible for the board to make the items available to a special district or a nonprofit entity, but not citizens. Directly.
Thank you.
I had one question on this. Are any of these vehicles that were discovered in the review that's currently going on with the motor pool, trying to figure out what vehicles we're spending more on maintenance than is worth it?
Oh, that's Zachariah.
Zachariah Collin, County Administrative Office. These vehicles are all pretty much the maintenance, it far exceeds their value. A few of them have transmission problems. The one on the bottom of the list for building has got a severe transmission problem. And Rojo has gone through and said most of these are red tagged.
Would you please thank him for that endeavor and the participating departments as well? This is a move toward efficiency, and it's welcome.
I'll move the item, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. I'd like to move to public comments. If anyone has an item they'd like to discuss that is not on the agenda and is under the jurisdiction of the board, please come forward.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to address the subject matter that's not on the agenda, but it might have some reflection of further down the road. And I'd like to address the trustees of Service District 1 in Rancho Calaveras specifically, since 5 trustees, 5 supervisors.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Oh, I'm Peter Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
And I live in Valley Spring in Rancho Calaveras. And specifically what I like to, I don't want to go back in history, but for 1773, there was a little thing about taxation without representation. And I know all 5 of you, as a trustee of a Service District 1, all 5 of you decided to inject yourself into that district. And but I have a little problem with it, since I'm not going to address any other district, even though we're talking about $2.2 billion total of these districts without elected representatives who we can hold accountability. And out of the $2.2 million, Rancho Calaveras, I believe it's $1.7 million. And I appreciate the controller giving me the total of the funds. But I have a question of accountability, on accountability of the money, how it was, why it was spent, on whose decision, what the consequences were there, because I received certain answers unofficially, because it's $1.5 million, because we can. You don't like it, get a lawyer. And I don't exactly consider that very, it does have a reflection for items that we're going to be talking about later. But let's go back to the whole idea of trustees, that maybe it's a question of their responsibility, and responsibility concerning that, what is that thing? There's a certain county code, governmental code that you assumed because any kind of answers I'm looking for, the closest one I got out of the recorder's office, 0708 budget. There's a little booklet there. And I believe that government code and county code requires once a year for people to express their opinion about the way that service district is ran. Because from my perspective, who have the skin in the game, I'm being profiled, I'm being discriminated against. It's not a big money, but when you boil it down to, it's $3 a month every year for a benefit that's available to the public in general. Just think about it. What scam is being run in Service District 1? You couldn't even put it on the ballot, folks. There's things changed a little bit. You know, there's something called Prop 218. You couldn't even put that issue on the ballot because it's so against, and I'm not talking about a federal level, I'm talking about local level, like California level. Prop 218, that's unconstitutional. What well, I got to watch my language. What that mess you guys inserted yourself, assumed by boards prior to you. Now, I'm not questioning the good intentions, but those good intentions, I will question how it was carried out and what process you proceeded on. So I'm kind of disappointed on it because I resent the profiling that I'm getting, that a certain segment of the county, I got to pay for something, that benefit is available to everybody. And I resent the discrimination of a certain segment in Rancho Calaveras, that you folks will pay for something that's available to the county general. And I'd like to remind you, this service districts, I believe it's almost every one of your districts as a supervisor. And I don't know if because like I said, I'm not going to dig into any other service district, but I do resent the idea that I have to pay for, I don't know if it's $36, $38, $20 more for a benefit that's available to everybody. And this principle is in the Constitution of California. And it's based on a whole little minor detail of taxing without representation. I got no recourse except for one individual, and maybe 4 of you going to let him hang out in the wind. But I would be more than happy to share what I found in my district affecting your integrity, your principles that you practice. Not just what you say, but actually what you do. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you about it later. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, CSA, CSD funding.
Darren Spellman, Rancho Calaveras. One of the things I just wanted to clarify that Peter was talking about, he's shared that information with me prior to today, and I won't go back over all the points that he made except for one, and that is that in his attempt to find information regarding these issues, he found, and then he brought to my knowledge, that there is supposed to be an accountability, not only a hard copy in writing, but there's also supposed to be a meeting with the people of the committee of that special district or the road committee and the governing supervisor or supervisors, and there's supposed to be a reckoning and accountability at least once a year. In that, after that accountability and reckoning takes place, there's a document that's generated that's kept on file at the county on how things transpired and what money was into it, that kind of thing. Like he just mentioned, the last document on record of line item expenditures for the district was in the 2007-2008 budget year. So that means there's no document currently available to public taxpayers letting them know the monies that have been spent or how they've been spent or how the decisions have been made in that road district down in Valley Springs, Coppopus, whether CSA 1. That has not been made public for over 2 years. 2007, 2008 budget. I mean, we're looking 2 years going on 3 years here. So to me, that is actually illegal, and the county stands in jeopardy for not having those things available. And if if it's not available because it was a mistake and it hasn't been printed or made available, that's one thing, which is still bad. But if the meetings were never even conducted, and that is something that's really egregious. And I hope that this gets straightened out. The other issue I wanted to speak to was, I've had people talk to me that are very frustrated about the way things are proceeding with SEIU and other various organizations that are trying to get their contracts ratified. It's not a secret. Everybody knows that, most all governmental institutions are in a financial pinch right now. So that's fine. People realize and understand that. But last year, representatives from the union came to this board and said that they gave a vote of no confidence in the union negotiations to the previous chair. And now this year again, we're having issues. And, like I said, everybody understands that money's tight and those type of things. But the people I talk to seem to have the opinion that these things are trying to be held off until at least after the election. And to me, that, again, is a very egregious thing. If you're trying to hold these things off until after the November 2nd election so that people can look like they're playing hardball with the union, and at the same time the union's twisting in the wind, and there's a lot of anti-union sentiment, but you know what? We have to remember that these people are people who have lives and bills to pay, and a lot of them have trouble sleeping at night, not knowing if their job's going to be cut, if their wages are going to be reduced. And I think that this board and the people who negotiate those contracts have an obligation to make a fair practice with these people. They have submitted several requests to the board, and that their requests for the contracts have been rejected. But they've just been rejected. There's no counteroffer. The board hasn't given any direction in terms of this is what we will accept or make reconciliations, those type of things. So I don't believe that the board at this time, from what I hear, I may be wrong, this is just feedback I'm getting from people, is not really negotiating in fairness. And obviously, again, I bring back the fact that last year they had to come down and say that they gave a vote of no confidence in the process. So I would ask that that all of the members of the board take this very seriously, and I'm sure you do. But I mean, just take another look at it and make sure that these people feel at least that they're being dealt with fairly. Thank you.
Your comments have been noted. Does anyone else have any item they'd like to discuss?
If I might, I'd like, on the question of whether there's accurate information on the expenditures made by CSAs and CSDs in this county, we have an audit that happens every year. That audit is made available to all members of the public, as I understand it. And if there's anything different than that, I'd sure like to know about it.
Yeah,
It is.
expenditure.
That's fine. Mr. Reese, we can discuss it with you later. There is an audit. The information is public. All money's expended. That's fine. Thank you. Darrell?
Yeah, just read out these numbers for me. Read out these numbers for me so they can identify this County Code Chapter 13.02 and Government Code Section 25210.77. And please read it and draw your own conclusions, just like everybody else does.
Darrell?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Am I speaking close enough to the mic? All right. Thank you.
No, people are saying no.
I'll try again.
Thank
Is that
you.
better? I don't know. I'm working on that. Members of the board, my name is Darrell Rusk. I live at 101 Melcher Lane in Valley Springs, actually in Burson, and my phone number is 772-0225. I have a habit of trying never to be anonymous on things. I have just a couple of concerns or comments, really. First, though, I want to give a compliment to the road department and to, I spoke with Jonathan Mitchell, a chief engineer, I believe, also with Mike, the regional supervisor in the western portion of the county, and they were extremely helpful when I expressed concerns about the heavy trucks, the two-trailer diesel trucks that were running 15, 20 trips each morning one way, and then they'd return on Hospital Road, Southworth, and Pettinger. They have apparently been able to redirect, or maybe the job has changed, but they were very kind, they were very helpful, and I want to give my compliment to them. And then, again, that was Jonathan Mitchell, and I don't know Mike's last name, the regional supervisor in that area, but it's related to work on Highway 12 by Caltrans. Let's see. I have certain interests in my life. They include my property rights, my family, my relationship to my maker, business development, not related to my maker, some politics, ethics, humor, and also labor relations. I've been involved in labor relations much of my life. And with regard to negotiations, negotiations aren't done for political purpose. I have never in my life seen that done, where negotiations are stalled or hurried up for political reasons. That simply doesn't work in labor negotiations. Negotiations are between parties. The parties work together, not actually on opposite sides of the table, but more often around a round table. And so I have no concerns about the negotiations between the county and each of the employee groups. I do encourage a fair and reasonable resolution to each of the union contracts, but that's to be decided between you and the unions. And I can't conceive of that being a political issue. With regard to business development, someone said one time that if you're going to be sued anyway, why not vote this way or vote that way? Well, the difference is if you vote one way and you're going to be sued anyway, the people doing or attempting to do business go forward while you're waiting for the litigation to work its way through. And people are allowed to be hired. People are allowed to pay revenues and taxes and sales taxes and employee taxes, probably in traffic tickets. But the point is, if you're given a choice between being sued one way or another, but one way will allow a business to at least continue in process until litigation is determined, it seems far more reasonable, far more practical, and far more economic to move in favor of allowing the business to move forward. It seems less than fully rational to me to do otherwise. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you each have a great day and a great Labor Day weekend coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Russ.
Mr. Russ, before you step down, I'd like to revisit your comments about your experience in labor negotiations and how it's been your observation that in your career you've never seen the resolution of a contract be delayed for political purposes. Just for the sake of discussion, if you or somebody else came to the microphone and made those allegations and said, I may be wrong, if they get proven to be wrong in short order, do you think that person should come back and say, I was wrong?
I think that would have been fair and reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the comments that I had included in my interests involved humor and ethics, and that would be an ethical thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board on an issue not on the agenda and under the jurisdiction of the board?
I have...
Joe Kelly. Madam Chair Callaway, I request you allow Sheriff-elect Gary Kuntz to express his thoughts, ideas, and concerns regarding item 16, jail construction, as part of the staff presentation time frame of item 16. My public comment. H.R. 2454, the cap and trade bill, has passed the House of Representatives and being considered by the Senate. If passed by the Senate, the Congressional Budget Office estimates in a few years the average cost to every family of 4 will be $6,800. No one is excluded. Beginning 1 year after the enactment of the Cap and Trade Act, you won't be able to sell your home unless you retrofit it to comply with the energy and water efficiency standards of this Act. If you have enough money to make required major upgrades to your home, then you can sell it. Prefabricated homes, mobile homes, are included. This bill prevents you from selling your home without the permission of the EPA administrator. To obtain this permission, you will have to have the energy efficiency of your home measured. The government will tell you what your new energy efficiency requirement is, and you will be forced to make modifications to your home under the retrofit provisions of this Act to comply with the new energy and water efficiency requirements. Another efficiency measure is required for obtaining a label. Last week I talked, or whenever it was licensing. This label or license must be posted on your property to show what your efficiency rating is. Now remember, you must have a high enough rating to sell or enough money to implement the necessary upgrades and a label license, or you cannot sell. The administrator appointed by the President to run the cap and trade program will be the EPA administrator. The EPA administrator is authorized to make any future changes to the regulations and standards he alone determines to be in the government's best interest. This includes the administrator's ability to raise standards above the automatic energy efficiency increases built into the Act. The initial requirements are set low, so the bill will pass Congress. After that, it's in the hands of the administrator. It gets even better. A building retrofit program mandating a national retrofit program to increase the energy efficiency of all existing homes across America. The Act allows the government to give you a grant of several $1,000s to comply with the retrofit program requirements if you meet certain energy efficiency levels. In addition, the state can set additional requirements on who qualifies to receive those grants. Section 204, Building Energy Performance Labeling Program, establishes a labeling program that for each individual residence will identify the achieved efficiency performance for at least 90% of the residential market within 5 years after the date of enactment of this Act. Within 5 years, 90% of all residential homes in the U.S. must be measured and labeled. The government estimates the cost of measuring the energy efficiency of your home should cost only about $200 each time. Where have we heard that kind of thing before? Section 304, greater energy efficiency in the National Building Codes establish new energy efficiency guidelines for the National Building Code and mandates 304D, application of National Code to state and local jurisdictions, that 1 year after enactment of this Act, all state and local jurisdictions must adopt the National Building Code energy efficiency provision or must obtain a certification from the federal government that their state and or local codes have been brought into full compliance with the National Building Code energy efficiency standards. To you, the elected officials and the unelected officials, what is the value of a home? In closing, I leave you with a quote I found very interesting. For those who have fought for it, freedom has a flavor the protected shall never know. Robert L. McClure, Company C, 75th Infantry, Ranger, I Field Force. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And if Sheriff-elect Kuntz wants to make a comment on item 16, he's free to do so. Does anyone else have an item they'd like to discuss, not on the agenda, under the board's jurisdiction?
Chairperson.
If any of you in the back would like to come sit over here, and there's some empty seats, there's places over here you can come sit.
I'm Tillman Sherman. I live in San Andreas. I have a couple of comments. There's been a lot of effort trying to demonize the term sustainable in recent times. So I looked it up in my American Heritage Dictionary, and sustainable is defined as to keep in existence or to supply with necessities. I can tell you I want Calaveras to sustain a rural atmosphere. I want Calaveras to sustain open space. I want Calaveras to sustain its roads such that we don't experience the gridlock in our roads and so that our roads are safe. I want Calaveras to sustain its agricultural roots. I want Calaveras to sustain its forests. I want Calaveras to sustain its rivers. I want Calaveras to sustain its water rights so we don't wind up paying someone else for our water like Inyo and Mono counties do. Lastly, for those who actually care about the truth, the U.S. Constitution guarantees our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It does not speak to property rights at all. Property rights would not exist if there was no government. I say to those who preach otherwise, go back and review your research, because what you say isn't so. I thank you all for your time.
Mr. Sherman, what was the first thing on your list before open space?
For what?
You listed various things.
Rural atmosphere.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Does anyone else have an item before the board, not on the agenda, under our jurisdiction? Thank you.
My name's Terry Baker, and I'm here regarding the illegal cock ranch again out in Railroad Flat, which is on 4 3/4 acres when it needs to be on 20 or be permitted. I have a few things for you. And I would just like to read a statement on the follow-up for the request for citizen's arrest citation for Roberta Carolyn Redmond. Dear County and Board of Supervisors, thank you all very much for your help, assistance, and cooperation in the prompt handling of our recent request to have Roberta Carolyn Redmond put under citizen's arrest or cited for the various penal code misdemeanor violations and the county animal control violations for misdemeanor and or infractions. We all cannot express enough of our gratitude that you all have now allowed a real deputy sheriff instead of the dog catcher to come out to our homes and to initiate the preliminary steps to have Roberta Redmond either cited and arrested for her continued and blatant violations of our state laws and for blatant and continued violations of our county animal code. The deputy was called away on an emergency with a man with a gun, but assured us that she would return on Friday to continue assisting us in this request. Deputy Monique Trudeau was very professional and extremely capable in her initial handling of this unfortunate situation for Miss Redmond. Your choice to send her was very wise and shows that this is a very serious matter indeed. And having a female deputy to handle a female suspect shows both compassion and wisdom. You are all to be congratulated for your insight. We must also congratulate you all, including the county attorney, for coming to the realization that any claim that California Civil Code Section 3482.5 exempts or affects anyone in a criminal matter was and is errant. Of course, the Civil Code only affects civil matters, which are lawsuits. You all have now come to the realization that there are no such alleged exemptions from any criminal type violations, and we are very thankful for that. The county council, or county attorney as we should say, must be congratulated for making this realization possible for all of us. Now perhaps we will be allowed to let the proper jurisdictions of the state criminal courts handle and rule these criminal matters as is proper, instead of negligently allowing your committee, the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee, and the chairman to continue to interfere with and obstruct the criminal prosecution and enforcement of the criminal defendant Roberta Carolyn Redmond. Sincerely, the Baker family and the Vieira Pennington family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Is there anyone else?
Good morning. Bonnie Newman from Devil Springs. Like Mr. Rusk, I do not hide behind confidentiality. I live on Devil Springs. I've been there for 35 years. If there's anything I say that offends anybody, call me up, ream me out, drop by my house, we'll chew the fat, maybe we'll have a resolution. I come here weekly to express concerns about what I think are maybe injustices or inequities. I missed the meeting last week. I had to bury my mom, and I would like to talk about that at a future date because that is an ongoing situation for home care workers. Because I missed the meeting, I went and listened to the minutes last week, and I understand that IHSS board member was appointed from the consumer group, and my understanding was there was several consumers interviewed, but only one was selected. So I'm wondering why the board isn't opening to their full 11-member status if there are actually more people interested in participating on the board. I heard something that was kind of not surprising, but last week Mary Sawicki mentioned that the IHSS Advisory Board deals with all IHSS matters. At the last IHSS Advisory Board, the public authority made such a statement. But that is contrary to the feeling that the IHSS Advisory Board has had for the past 8 years. And I'm going to quote something that came out of the Advisory Board minutes of May 2010. That's just 3 months ago. I was trying to get a waiver of confidentiality so we could carry placards representing our clients at rallies and for other reasons. And the comment that was inserted in the board minutes said that this is an IHSS issue for the IHSS supervisor, the director of CalWorks, and county council. The decision rests with them, not the advisory committee or the public authority. For 8 years, these people have been, I will say, kept in a cocoon. I do not consider them the IHSS Advisory Board. I do consider them the Public Authority Advisory Board. They have not been allowed to feel comfortable receiving information from any other place except the public authority. They resent public comment. Care providers are not made to feel welcome at the IHSS Advisory Board meetings. And since I've been stirring it up for the past year, I saw a distinct difference in the way the board was conducted last time. The public authority is standing back and allowing the advisory committee members to take action, but they have been, I would say, brainwashed up until this point to be the Public Authority Advisory Board. A couple of announcements. Our union has submitted a proposal The board accepted it, and we are voting to ratify it. The IHSS home care providers will be voting next Monday at the Frogateria in Angels Camp from 11 to 3 on whether to accept our proposal to continue our present contract for 1 year. On Tuesday, at the Senior Center, the voting will be taking place from 11 to 5. That's all IHSS advisory board members are encouraged to come down and accept our new contract or reject it. One other thing, next Sunday...
Bonnie, your time's almost up.
Okay, I'll just make it really quick. Pizza night for IHSS board members in Valley Springs at the Pizza Factory at 5:30. This is to provide a way for us to meet each other. And next Monday at 10 o'clock is the IHSS Advisory Board meeting at CalWorks. And since we have never had participation from any Board of Supervisors, I would encourage and invite not only you, but anyone else in the community who has interest in this meeting to please come down and participate, observe, and give feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Newman, we have requested a study session on the IHSS and the public authority. I'm not sure when it will be, but it has been requested. Thank you.
Is that a public
Yes,
participation?
everything is public.
Thank
yes. Does someone else have an item they'd like to discuss, not on the agenda and under board jurisdiction?
My name is Gary Petz, and I was wondering if your 850 John Deere at the landfill was going to be coming up for salvage. I have one like it, and I would interested in it for parts if you're going to put it up for salvage.
Why don't we have Public Works get hold of you? If you could give your phone number to the clerk, we'll have somebody call you.
Okay, it's 728-3500.
Okay, and that's P-E-T-Z?
Pardon me?
Your last name is spelled?
P-E-T-T-S, Pets.
P-E-T-T-S. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pets.
Did Public Works get that number?
I should give it to them.
I think they did.
That's fine, we got it. I was going to have Madeline make sure.
Madam Chair, if there's no one else wishing to speak on this item, I'd like to call Mrs. DeYoung to the podium, please. Is your neighbor with you?
Yes.
Maybe Mary could come up as well. This item came to my attention just last week, where Mrs. DeYoung lives at 13886 Milton Road in Valley Springs. She got herself in a little bit of a catch-22, and this is one of those situations where I can see how people get frustrated with our government. Mrs. DeYoung is a little nervous here, so I'll speak for her as much as I can, but I encouraged her to come so that we could at least try to initiate a resolution to her problem. It seems that Mrs. DeYoung lives on a 68-acre parcel. Her home and an established kennel that I saw last Sunday that appears to me to have been there about 20 years. She got caught in a situation where, in her attempt to be a responsible citizen and license her dogs, came up with she has more than 4 dogs. As a matter of fact, she has 9 of them. And therefore, she has to, even though she's had this kennel there for 20 years, she's in a situation where she has to apply for a kennel license, and she was very anxious to do that and came over and was faced with the unfortunate situation that they said, okay, we'll sign here and give us a check for $2,060, and you can have a kennel license. And so I don't think that is in the was ever intended to be the result of this kennel license thing. I mean, I can fully appreciate in an instance where you've got close proximity neighbors, if you have more than 4 dogs, it could be a problem, and therefore it should come under more close scrutiny and perhaps the issuance of this kennel license. So what I'd like to have the board at least initially consider is that there is a waiver process that, interestingly, it says that the hearing is to be advertised by the planning department, and everyone within 300 feet should be notified to come to the hearing. So how far is your closest neighbor?
A quarter of a mile.
Okay,
and
you
I
see
have her with me.
Mrs. Silvera, you want to raise your hand?
Mary, raise your hand.
All right, so, I mean, we're laughing about this, and I think that there's justification for laughter, but we're kind of laughing through clenched teeth, because this is a situation that is, in my opinion, grossly unfair, and I know that we're faced with budget constraints, and we'd like to have as many fees as possible, but I would submit to this board that requiring a $2,060 fee in this particular instance, where you've got 68-acre parcel that's not affecting anybody, it never has affected anybody, that we ought to consider scheduling this for a hearing to consider the waiver. The difficulty is that she has a letter from the Sheriff's Department saying that she has to take care of this matter before September 13th this year. So that gives us very little time, unless we can prevail upon the Sheriff's Department to kind of hold off on going out to collect her dogs before we can get this matter resolved. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. DeYoung, do you have any further comments on this?
Only that the Sheriff's Department had sent me an application for a kennel license, which I followed up on, and I went to the animal control, and they sent me over to the planning department, and they said that my property wasn't zoned for that. It's zoned agricultural. I don't understand. You know, everybody has dogs. I do show my dogs. I have Great Danes. I've raised them for 30 years, and I have lived out here for over 20, and I do show them. So they're in confirmation classes, and I just don't understand how they can force me to just up and get rid of them. You know, it just boggles my mind, and I don't know what I'd do. I'd have to leave. That's what happens.
Okay, well, we certainly don't want to see you pick up and leave the county just because of this. I'm committed to do everything that I can to help resolve this, and we can't make a decision on this morning, but what we frequently do is we kind of poll the board to look for shaking heads about whether people would be willing to schedule this for a waiver, a hearing that we would consider a waiver of the fee. So, Madam Chair, would you poll the board on this?
Well, I think you got a schedule. We can't. What are we polling for?
Just the willingness to have a waiver hearing.
Or have a hearing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not sure. We'd have to look at council, but I'm not sure you can. I mean, there has to be a basis for a waiver, so I don't.
Yeah, I'd want to hear from the planning department and
the
issues.
You'd like a hearing, fine. I support a hearing.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to need to come to you. It's going to have to come through the department.
I understand, but if this morning we see at least 3 supervisors who have no willingness to consider having a waiver, then maybe Mr. Young would consider other options. But
if she's denied the relief by the department, she has a right to come here on appeal. But.
It strikes me that we have several different issues. One is the zoning question, and if you're zoned ag, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I thought that there were considerations for properties over 20 acres for that particular activity. I may be wrong, but I'd sure like to know whether we're getting accurate information on the zoning aspect. Secondly, we have a fee that apparently is an adopted fee, but maybe it's a one-size-fits-all version that was done as a group of fees, and that this needs further examination. So my view would be that if we were to have a hearing, it should be an appeal based on the zoning if there's a problem, and that if we have a problem with the fee, that this board should review its fees with care and attention to this particular item. And there are two different venues, I think, if I'm correct.
Yes, Don? Well, my objective in bringing this is just to demonstrate to Mr. Young in particular and citizens in general that we are in a position to be responsive to what seems to be unjustifiable anomalies in our codes and requirements. So.
Russ, why don't you work with her and the planning department? I'm sure the sheriffs can be put in abeyance until you work with it, and then have the issue, see if it could be resolved or brought to the board.
Right, and I'd also like to be on record as joining Tom in being willing to hear this if it needs to come before us. I would hope it would be handled administratively, but if not, bring it to us.
Okay.
I have a quick question, ma'am, before you leave. If you've been out there 20 years running your 9 dogs, why did you all of a sudden show up at animal control and ask for a
Well,
kennel
because
permit?
I did a stupid thing and decided it would be wise for me to get licenses on my dogs. And so they saw that there was more than 3.
4 or more. Yeah.
Well, I'm not familiar with this one bit, Mr. Thomas, but let me assure you that the issue is much bigger than this problem we have here, and we do need to do a study session on it. We do need to determine some things. There are a lot of folks out there who like dogs, and they have multiple dogs, and they do go within that realm. We don't go out and hunt them down and do those types of things. I appreciate the fact that she come and did the right thing and licensed her dogs. I don't think this problem is solely with her. I think there's an issue that needs to be addressed. But I think we need to look at it and see what we can do for the community as a whole.
Okay.
Are you willing to sort of hold off enforcement until we get something more resolved?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, and then from the department, if you can't handle this administratively and it requires a policy... If you can't handle this administratively and it requires a policy review, then I suggest that we hold a study session and accomplish that.
Sir, please call me and we'll take care of it, okay?
Mr. Young, do you know Captain Ballard? That's Captain Eddie Ballard there, so he... Okay. All right, thank you very much for your willingness to consider this.
Madam Chair, Honorable Supervisors, I'm Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, on the same subject.
You got 9 dogs too, Al?
I got 2 cats, but I haven't registered them.
Are they licensed?
They're not licensed. Supervisor Thomas did a good thing here, I think. This is the second time that in Copperopolis area we've come across regulatory...
Mr. Segali has the floor, please. Thank you.
They might not agree with me. This is the second time that the Taxpayer Association's become aware of regulatory abuse, which is clearly, this is what this is. The other one was the Old Corner Saloon. I don't know if you remember, the owner of the saloon was requested to pay like $3,000 to have a zoning change to commercial, and he's had the thing commercial for over 100 years. And he was at wit's end. He couldn't use his deck for food without getting approval from the planning department, and they wanted that $3,000. That one was resolved administratively by the planning director, I guess, community
development director.
Community development director. And Supervisor Thomas took the initiative on that as well. Well, I'm thinking and I think the taxpayers are thinking, maybe the study session should not stop with just resolving this one case. Maybe some effort should be made to review the whole zoning ordinance and look for cases of potential regulatory abuse and nip it in the bud, or establish a process for a quick resolution where property owners are not harming their neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segali.
Darren Spellman again, Rancho Calaveras. I just want to make the board aware of some things so that everybody's clear on this. Wednesday, May 14th, there was a meeting of the CCWD board to take care of a water project that needed to be dealt with down in Valley Springs. CCWD board members made it known to me that they were not able to waive fees or give discounts for this water project to people who are struggling with financial problems that may lose their property because they were bound by the state in terms of what they could do. They did say that the county had the ability to waive fees or reduce fees based on need if they thought it was necessary or if they thought it was applicable. Mr. Thomas gave a quote to the Calaveras Enterprise, and he said, I quote, "We give no discounts of fees or services. Everybody is to pay the same." And if he's telling the public through the Calaveras Enterprise that there are no discounted fees or services for people who are going to lose their homes because of special assessments, and the county can reduce the fees for the inspections on the project based on need, if he's not going to reduce fees or even think about it, have a study session about reducing fees for people who are going to lose their home to foreclosure because they can't afford it, but yet he's willing to step in for this lady with their dogs, the bike event promoter in Copper, the saloon or whatever, it seems to me that there's a disparity here and that he's politicizing and punishing these people in Rancho Calaveras who are deserving of a fee waiver as much as anybody else. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Russ, I think I've come into your defense.
Good.
Anyway, I believe I objected to a comment. My name is Clyde. I'm from Valley Springs. I objected to a comment that Russ made one time when Russ was trying to get fees waived for Rancho on this probably the same water thing, and I said I didn't want those fees waived because I fought very hard to get the inspections and stuff on the work and stuff that CCWD. And I believe that was a month and a half ago. So anyway, Russ, I do defend you on that because you tried to get them done and I put squash to it, I think. I talked to Tom about it.
Okay, yeah, just for the record, the only county fees that could possibly be waived on that project are the inspection fees,
right.
The public works fees. There are no other fees associated, county fees associated with that project. Mr. Spellman has his wires crossed on that issue.
Yes. But anyway, I just threw that in because I knew it wasn't true. But this is the first time I've seen this board because I thought the policy, since Marie became chair, it was not for the board to direct comments and stuff at public comment. I believe this is public comment still. And I just got done